Hey guys, this is going to be my out-of-box review for the Kotobukiya Frame Arms 1/100 scale Type 48 Kagutsuchi Kou. So just for simplicity's sake, again, I'm just going to refer to this as the Type 48, but this is another frame arms kit. And a really cool one, I must say. It definitely has a very interesting look. If you remember, well, it's not too long ago, about a month or so ago, I reviewed the Lenos kit. I reviewed the Lenos land battle version. That was a kit from Plum, from a video game way back when anyway. It really had a similar look to this, so a little bit later on in this review I'll just compare those kits there for you. I'll put them side by side. Also, not too long ago I reviewed the first kind of full frame arms review that I've done here on my channel. I did the Go-Rai, and I gotta say, between this and the Go-Rai, again, I'll compare them for you in a minute, but I'll just tell you now that this is considerably larger. I mean, it's a very bulky design, but the way that it's constructed is really quite interesting, the way that it uses that frame arms frame. Also should just mention that apparently by the reading the comments on the unboxing for this kit, it seemed like there was a little bit of confusion in you guys about maybe how you understood my comments about the review of the Go-Rai concerning the frame arms frame, in that apparently I sounded like the frame is like really shitty or something just because of the fact that I had to use glue on it. I didn't mean that, so I hope not too many of you were confused about that. The frame that was in the frame arms Go-Rai kit is the same kind of frame that was used in this kit, where it's not the renewal type. You can get this kit, basically the same kit, but it's including the new renewal type frame, which obviously is going to be better. It fixes some of the smaller issues, I guess, with the frame, but makes it just a little bit kind of nicer, a little bit more solid. But anyway, that wasn't my point at all. With the Go-Rai, yes, you do have to use some glue on the frame, but just after you use glue, the frame is perfectly fine. My point was that just to bear in mind that if you don't have the renewal version, you will have to use some glue on that frame. That's it. The frame is perfectly fine. So same thing goes for this kit. This is not the renewal version, so the frame, but I think the frame in this case wasn't really a problem because the frame is so broken up in this kit. Basically, you don't have the frame as it is inside of here exactly as it is at all. Like the torso of the frame is actually the waist part of this, so it's turned upside down and it's actually here in the waist. So what would be the shoulder joints are actually the hip joints, and then like part of the leg frame is in the lower leg, like the thigh frame is in like the lower leg, and then like the elbow joint is where it's supposed to be, but then like the different parts of the frame are actually used in like different areas. So it's not, I mean, it's all used, but it's used in different areas than exactly how it comes in the box. So basically you're just taking that frame apart and then just putting it in different areas. So it's a really interesting build. There's really a lot more going on to this kit than I expected. I mean, it looks relatively straightforward. I think that's just due to its pretty like washed color scheme. It's just pretty much all this just tan color, so that kind of makes it look a little bit more simple, but it's quite complicated to build. There's a lot of parts in there. It's just more complicated than I was expecting it to be. You also may notice throughout this review that you may notice a little bit more sanding and gluing in certain areas. That's just because just while I was snapping this up, I thought I might as well take my time to just make this pretty much as close to paint ready as I could. So I did sand a lot of the surfaces more than I usually do just for these just straight out of the box reviews, and I did also glue some of the seam lines already. Most of those are probably hidden on some of like the frame areas and things like that. It's kind of inner areas, but if you do see some of that in some different areas, that's all it was. I just kind of did a little bit more sanding and gluing that I typically do at this stage in the build. So let us go ahead and take a look at this. One thing that I will mention about just having this kit standing is that it's a really big, bulky mobile suit. Or sorry, I'm gonna keep calling it mobile suit. Sorry about that anyway, but you guys get what I mean. It's a really big, bulky robot here, and then it's all focused on this really tiny little ankle joint there. So it's kind of a little bit tricky to get it to stand. You have to get the legs posed just right, but you can see it's coming down here to this just one little tiny joint there for the ankle, and that's kind of where all this has to be balanced on. The other thing that is unfortunate about that is that there is nowhere to actually use any sort of like stand or action base with this. Sorry, kind of having trouble holding it there. But what I would suggest you to do if you want to use this up on an action base is just right in there where you have that flat part, just drill your hole straight up into there, and there you go, you can attach that onto a peg of an action base. So I'll probably end up doing that later or not, I don't know. In the meantime, it's kind of has that kind of ground type design, so I think just posing it on the ground will work fine. The head is a very unique feature of this design, as you can tell, very long there. So you can see we do have the molded details for the stripe. It's supposed to have one more white stripe here and then a red stripe here. So it should be really easy to mask and paint that. So the head does have some articulation. It does kind of rotate here. The way that it is, it's kind of just barely fitting onto that ball joint, the way that is there. So you can't really move it up and down too much. It's just going to come off that ball joint. So basically rotating side to side is about all you're going to be able to do with that head. Here on the shoulders, this shoulder armor is kind of a little bit weird, as you have to kind of move the shoulder armor first before you're able to really move the arm. And then just due to the design of that, you're only really going to be able to move the arm up to there without modifying this. Personally, I don't really like the design of this piece here on the shoulder. Everything's like very angular and like kind of a square sense. And then we have this piece here on the shoulder where it's just this like very different design, very angular, sharp design there in a diagonal angle, so it doesn't really mesh as well with the rest of the design, I think. So what I might do eventually is just kind of omit that part. That will also give me more upward articulation here in the arm, I think. So may end up putting some other different part there on just to kind of make it look a little bit more square. But anyway, then just standard arm articulation there, rotation and double joint, but again it's going to start to kind of crash into some other parts here. One really cool gimmick built into the arm here is this part will fold out and forward, and then we have this little plug here which will plug into the weapon, so that will give you more support for holding the weapon. It's actually not really on this side. On the left side you're really not going to use that at all, because the rifle is meant to be held in the right hand, so we're going to be using that more over here on this side when I show you guys the weapons. As for the hands, kind of standard Kotobukiya frame arms hands, so we have just the closed fists, which I have here on the kit, holding hands, which I have on the weapons, and then you have a set of open hands as well. Open hands look like this. Very nice design. I like the design of these open hands, nicely detailed as well. So you have one of those for the left and the right. Here in the torso section, we do have a little bit of bend forward and back there, but again, it's going to be very heavy, so it seems to be fine now, but I think you will have to maybe work on a little bit of a balancing act. If you want to have this in a more extreme pose and have that bent forward like that, it may not hold. But anyway, we can rotate that a little bit as well. It's going to be a little bit limited in its rotation, but you can move it a little bit side to side. Here in the hips, like I said, this was originally the shoulder joint, so this will kind of swing forward like that, swing back, and then just kind of standard rotation up and down, and then rotation to the side, a little bit like that, move it out, really not that far, as you can see, just kind of going to pull that off the ball joint there. So in terms of like doing the splits, you're really not going to get those legs very wide. I really like this here in the legs, how this is 3 layers of armor actually. There's this main piece, then you put on that piece, then you put on that piece on top of that. So that's kind of what I mean at how this is quite complicated, because then we have 1, 2, 3 pieces, 1 piece there, 1 piece there, 1 piece there, 1 piece here. So a lot of different armor pieces going around onto this. So that was kind of interesting, the way that all goes together. The knee bend is there, and it's going to be like that, but again with all of that stuff just mashed into here, all these different angles and stuff going everywhere. It's very complicated looking there on the side, so you can move the knees. You can also sort of move that back. It's kind of an interesting bend here, and this part here on the back of the leg does also kind of get in the way. We have this wheel here, which is kind of similar to the Go Right. It had the tank treads, but this one, you can just move that down, just kind of rotate that wheel out, and you can have that there for like a kind of more high mobility or like speed kind of movement there, I guess, just using the wheels there for some extra speed, I guess. That's supposed to be for speed. Going back to the ankles, like I said, the ankle joint is very small, but works quite well in that, so you can rotate the ankle side to side, no problem there. Forward and back, not really too much. Forward, more than enough there, plenty. The toes aren't going to move at all. It's just one orange piece there for each side, so those toes don't close up or anything. There, kind of what you see is what you get. Just going around once again here to the back skirt. The back skirt does also move, so kind of what you're meant to do for its, I'm just going to call it a high mobility kind of form when you fold the wheels down is you're also just supposed to lift up the back skirt there, and then it has these big kind of thruster engines there up underneath the back skirt. Those rubber cords here work really well. They're really simple. You just plug those into there, and yeah, those should work just fine. So the back skirt will just move up and down like that. Here on the backpack, we have this part here in the center, which is made to come up and off. And you can turn that around, and then you have one more hard point there to plug on something, whatever you kind of want on the backpack. So we actually have 3 points here on the backpack where you can plug in something, or if you prefer, just to have 2. So as I alluded to before, here we have its rifle, really huge. I really like the design of this. It's just a really cool, big, bulky rifle, and that's kind of one of the main things that I really like about this kit. I really like this weapon. So as you can see, I got the holding hand just already attached onto there because it's kind of complicated the way you have to get it on there. This whole handle will actually kind of rotate like that, which is kind of weird. I think that they maybe should have made like one extra little peg there just so that's nice and solid, but again, very easily, all you have to do is just glue that, and then it's just solid in place, and it won't move or anything. So that's really the only kind of part of articulation on the gun. The only thing that moves is kind of somewhere where it's not really supposed to move. We do also have this arm here, this mechanical arm. What you would do with this is this plugs onto the backpack, and then if you don't put the hand on there, then the handle will actually slip into this part, and then you can have the rifle mounted up over the shoulder like that on the backpack. I'll show that to you here in a bit. But we do have that extra piece, just wanted to show that to you. Rotates there and there like that. And then the last thing here is its big shield. So this is a really big, cool, interesting shield. How I like it because it's so different, unique. Instead of just like one main piece, it's just these 6 big, huge armor plates that are there. So it kind of makes it look a little bit more utilitarian, I think. And then we have here on the inside, again, I just have the holding hand already attached to the handle. The handle will rotate forward and back, but it will not actually slide. It looks like it's on a track there, but it's just how it looks. It doesn't actually slide anywhere. Another thing you can do with this if you want a little bit less shield, you can just take one piece and then just plug the handle directly into that, just here like so, and then you can have it just holding just one little smaller shield like that, which I think is kind of cool. The big shield is cool and interesting, but I'm not really that big of a fan of really huge shields as much as I am really huge guns. But it's just cool that we have that option. For a quick comparison, here it is with a standard 1/44 scale Gundam, so you can see it's definitely going to be a little bit larger than that. Like I said, these frame arms kits usually are kind of about, compared to Gundams, they're in a scale that's sort of between 1/44 and 1/100 scale. They're definitely larger than 1/144, but definitely a little bit smaller generally than 1/100 scale. It kind of depends on the mobile suit itself. And then here we also have the Lenos land battle version, so obviously going to be a very similar sort of design, kind of has that kind of big, bulky design. Obviously the color is very similar and just kind of all around a very similar aesthetic. Alright, so that extra kind of support arm on the back of the arm that plugs up into the bottom of the rifle actually works really, really well. I'm not really sensing any sort of weight issues there in the arm. The arm feels totally solid enough. Of course, if there was any sort of weight issue, that'd be very easy enough to fix, I think. However, one thing that does seem to be a little bit of an issue is, as I mentioned before, the stomach crunch, where it does have a little bit of a bend there in the torso. As you can see, just as I mentioned that, it went down there. So let's just pop that back up. Yeah, you're definitely going to want to just put a little bit of glue or paint or whatever you want to do to just stiffen up that joint in the torso section, because it definitely is going to be weighed down when you're trying to pose it with that rifle out in front. The rifle is going to be pretty heavy, and while the arm is solid enough, that waist just straight out of the box is just not quite strong enough there. So other than that, this is a really, really nice kit. I'm actually really happy with this kit, despite having a little bit of kind of weight issues, and like some of the articulation is a little bit wonky, and it's kind of a little bit hard to get it, a little bit tricky, I should say. Not hard, it's just a little bit tricky. It's just a little bit of a balance act to get it posed in some of the poses that you may want to do with it. But overall, I mean, it's got everything there. It's got some really cool gimmicks in terms of like the wheels on the back of the legs, how you can mount the rifle onto the backpack, how you can kind of vary the shield a little bit, whether you want it as a smaller one or a large one. The gimmick of the arm folding out to support the rifle is really cool. So there's a lot of really cool stuff to like about this kit. Like I said, I think the list price was for 3,800 yen, which is about the same price as the Master Grade GM Sniper 2. So, which was a really, really fantastic gift from Bandai. So you kind of just have to compare those. I think you definitely won't be disappointed with this. It'll be a little bit more expensive, but the other thing about this, and I think with pretty much anything non-Bandai, you have to kind of expect that there's going to be a little bit more work going into it than your standard Bandai kit. Bandai kits are made to look and operate really well just straight out of the box with no extra work required. But with the Kotobukiya kits like this, think just taking that little bit of extra efforts to just kind of stiffen the joints a little bit, remove some of those seam lines, obviously paint everything, and you're going to have a really, really nice looking kit. So I'm really looking forward to working on this more in the future. I do also have the sniper variant of this, which has a little bit different armor, a different color, and then obviously a very huge sniper rifle that comes with that. So I'll have to get that. Have to get around to that here one of these days and review that kit for you guys. I'll do a little comparison, of course, as well. In the meantime, if you guys have questions or comments about this kit, I know you can get this on HLJ, I know you can get it on probably a lot of other different online shops as well. There is also like an extra like kind of option unit for this where you kind of replace the legs with this huge set of thrusters for it, and it's a kind of a really cool thing. I've often thought about getting that set and using that like to kit bash with a Gundam model and not actually with this, but possibly in the future, I don't know. I haven't really had any really solid idea about that, so I haven't pulled the trigger on buying that option set yet, but it's a pretty cool option set. If you guys are interested, you should check it out. But thank you guys as always for watching. Leave your questions, comments, all of that down below, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. See you next time.